For thousands of years, spiritual information was kept secret. Priests and priestesses of various religions or cults would give their lives to keep the rest of the world from knowing about their secrets and spiritual knowledge, making sure it remained secret. All the various spiritual groups and religions around the world had their secret information. Then suddenly, in the mid-60s, the veil of secrecy was lifted. In unison, almost all the spiritual groups of the world opened their archives at the same moment in history, and information that had been sealed and guarded for thousands of years became suddenly available. For a long time, astronomers pretty much thought that what you saw out there was it. If you could see it, it was there. They were either totally oblivious to the invisible side of reality, or they didn't feel it was that important. But the invisible side of our reality is actually much greater than the visible side, and probably more important. The visible part of reality is far less than 1% of the total, almost nothing. The invisible universe is really our true home. There is much, much more. There are things even beyond the electromagnetic spectrum that we are just beginning to answer. The answer lies in the fact that the computer is made out of silicon and we are made out of carbon. It is tied into the relationship of silicon and carbon. Everything in our world is a waveform, sometimes called pattern or sine wave signature, or could even be seen as sound. All things, like our bodies, planets, the universe, absolutely everything, are waveforms. The dimensional levels are nothing but differing base rate wavelengths. The only difference between this dimension and any other is the length of its basic waveform. It's just like a television or radio set. When you turn the dial, you pick up a different wavelength. Then you get a different image on your TV screen or a different station on your radio. It's exactly the same for dimensional levels. If you were to change the wavelength of your consciousness, and in so doing change all your body patterns to a wavelength different from this universe, you would literally disappear out of this world and reappear in the one to which you were tuned. Every object in this universe produces a sound according to its construction. Each object makes a unique sound. If you average the sounds of all the objects in this universe, in this third dimension, you would get this 7.23 centimeter wavelength, and it would be the true sound of Om for this dimension. It was Bell Laboratories that discovered this wavelength, not some spiritual person sitting in a cave somewhere. As you go up into dimensional levels, the wavelength gets shorter and shorter, with higher and higher energy. As you go down in dimensional levels, the wavelength gets longer and longer, with lower and lower energy, the more densely. Just as with a piano, there's a space between the notes, so that when you hit one note, there's a very definite place where the next note is. In this waveform universe we exist in, there is a very definite place where the next dimensional level exists. It's a specific wavelength relative to this one. Most cultures in the cosmos have this basic understanding of the universe, and they know how to move between dimensions. If we show each note in the chromatic scale as a circle, we have 13 circles. Each circle represents a white or black key, and the shaded circle at the end would be the 13th note that begins the next octave. The black circle on this illustration represents the third dimension, our known universe, and the fourth circle, the fourth dimension. The 12 major overtones between any two notes or dimensions are a replica of the larger pattern. It is holographic. If you carry it further, between each overtone you'll find another 12 overtones that replicate the whole pattern. It goes down and up, literally forever. This is called a geometric progression, only in harmonics. If you continue to study it, you will find that each of the unique musical scales that have been discovered produces a different octave of experience. If you continue to study it, you'll find that each of the unique musical scales that have been discovered produces a different octave of experience, more universes to explore. There are 12 major dimensions and 132 minor dimensions within each octave, though in truth, the progression goes on forever. This diagram represents one octave. The 13th note repeats, then there's another octave above that one. There's an octave of universes below this and an octave above, and it stretches on theoretically forever. So, as big and as infinite as this universe seems, which is just an illusion anyway, there are still an infinite number of other ways to express the one reality, and each dimension is experimentally completely different from any other. Between each whole node universe and between each subspace or overtone universe, there is nothing, no thing, absolutely zip. Each of these spaces is called a void. The void between each dimension is called the duat by Egyptians or the bardo by Tibetans. Each time you pass from one dimension or overtone into the next, you pass through a void or blackness that's in between. But certain voids are blacker than others, and the blackest of these exist between the octaves. They are more powerful than the voids that exist within an octave. Please understand that we are using words that cannot fully explain this concept. This void that exists between octaves can be called the Great Void. It's like a wall you have to pass through to get to a higher octave. The great architect and geometrician of the matrix universe put these voids there in a particular way for certain reasons that will soon become apparent. All of these dimensions are superimposed over each other, and every point in space-time contains them all. The doorway to any of them is anywhere. This star tetrahedron, with Leonardo's image behind it, is going to become one of the most important drawings for this work. What you're looking at is two-dimensional, but think of it in three dimensions. A star tetrahedron, just as shown here, happens to exist around each human body. As Richard Hoagland has shown the United Nations and NASA, we're now beginning to scientifically rediscover this field. Just as it is shown around Leonardo, it is also around planets, suns, and even larger bodies. Quantum mechanics is a set of principles describing physical reality at the atomic level of matter and at the subatomic level. Unlike other physical theories, quantum mechanics was not the invention of one or two scientists. Those who took part are called the Founding Fathers, but some of these discoveries were well known for thousands of years by the ruling elite. Quantum physics has now shown us that the person performing the experiment influences the outcome. In other words, consciousness can change the outcome of an experiment depending on its belief patterns. There are also other aspects of ourselves we hold true that may not be true at all.